But here's what security staff won't tell you directly. The policy isn't really about your helmet. It's about the guy who caused problems last year and then disappeared into the crowd because no one could see his face. It's about emergency situations where medics need to check someone's condition but can't see their eyes or mouth. It's about basic crowd psychology and the human need to see faces in social situations. You've spent 6 months perfecting your cosplay. Every detail is flawless. The fabric, the armor, the prop that cost you 3 paychecks. You walk up to convention security with confidence, and then you hear those 2 words that destroy everything. Sorry, no. What just happened? You followed every rule you could find online. You checked the website, you even called ahead. But there's a secret list that conventions don't advertise. 18 instant deal breakers that can turn your masterpiece into a very expensive mistake. And today we're exposing every single one. This isn't just about following rules. This is about understanding the hidden psychology behind convention security, the insurance nightmares that drive policy, and the recent incidents that changed everything. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what separates the cosplayers who glide through security from those who end up crying in the parking lot. Let's start with the most devastating category, the weapon trap that's fooling even veteran cosplayers. Sarah thought she had everything figured out. Her Destiny Guardian build was incredible. Weathered armor, LED details, and a handcrafted exotic pulse rifle that looked like it came straight from Bungie Studios. She'd even added the required orange tip and P-spawn tags. But when she approached the convention entrance, security took one look at her prop and shut her down instantly. Here's what Sarah didn't understand. The rules changed, and nobody told the cosplayers. Convention security used to work on a simple system. Orange tip equals fake gun. Right? Wrong. Dead wrong. In 2024, that system collapsed under the weight of crowd psychology and venue insurance policies. Security volunteers can't be trained to distinguish between a foam slide and a steel one in the 3 seconds they have to make a decision. And with packed lobbies full of families, one moment of confusion can spiral into chaos. The problem isn't your craftsmanship, it's actually your success. When your prop firearm looks so realistic that it could pass for the real thing from 10 feet away, you've crossed an invisible line that convention security can't ignore. Matte black finishes, metal frames, duty-style shapes, these details that make your build screen accurate are exactly what triggers the ban. But here's where it gets really frustrating. The orange tip that used to save you, it's not enough anymore. P-spawn tags? Meaningless if the base prop still reads as threatening to someone scanning a crowded room. Convention staff are dealing with parents who pull their kids away, venue managers who get nervous calls, and insurance companies asking very pointed questions about liability. The solution isn't to give up on weapon props, it's to completely rethink your approach. The cosplayers who are succeeding now aren't building more realistic props. They're building obviously fictional ones that still capture the character perfectly. Take Marcus, who rebuilt his entire Overwatch Soldier 76 loadout after getting banned 3 conventions in a row. Instead of military colors, he went with bright blue and orange color blocking. Instead of metal textures, he used translucent shells with internal LED strips. Instead of realistic proportions, he exaggerated the sci-fi elements. The result? He looked more like the character than ever, and security waved him through without a second glance. This principle applies to every weapon category that's getting cosplayers stopped. Sharp metal blades are getting the axe because steel is unforgiving in crowds. One stumble on convention stairs, one accidental brush against someone in a tight hallway, and your photo opportunity becomes a trip to the emergency room. But here's what security staff know that most cosplayers don't. The weapons that photograph the best aren't the ones that could actually hurt someone. Foam cores with rubberized edges, EVA foam with heat-sealed skins, urethane blade tips that you can remove for photos. These alternatives don't just keep you compliant, they actually look better under convention lighting. The same logic applies to functional projectile props. Nerf blasters, tension bows, even foam dart guns are getting banned, not because they're dangerous weapons, but because they create unpredictable situations in dense crowds. One demonstration shot, one harmless test firing, and suddenly you've got a crowd of people stopping to look, security rushing over, and a chain reaction that shuts down an entire hallway. Convention staff have seen it happen too many times. the cosplayer who just wanted to show how it worked to a friend, the photographer who thought one action shot would be harmless, the group who decided to stage a mock battle right there in the dealer's hall. Each incident makes the rules stricter for everyone else. Smart cosplayers are adapting by building props that suggest function without providing it. Bow strings that look tight but have no actual tension. Arrow nocks that appear ready to fire but can't actually launch anything. Trigger mechanisms that look functional but are purely cosmetic. You maintain the character's silhouette and story while eliminating the liability that gets you banned. But weapons aren't the only trap waiting for unsuspecting cosplayers. The next category of bans is even more surprising because it targets builds that seem completely harmless. We're talking about size and movement restrictions that are turning convention floors into geometric puzzles, and the solutions that smart cosplayers are using to beat the system. The meta is changing faster than most cosplayers realize, and those who adapt early are the ones getting the best photos, the most attention, and the smoothest convention experiences. But those who stick to old approaches, they're learning these lessons the hard way, one security checkpoint at a time. Size matters when big dreams meet fire codes. Jessica Sephiroth cosplay was a masterpiece. 7-foot wingspan, individually crafted feathers, internal LED lighting that made her look like she'd stepped out of Final Fantasy VII itself. She'd worked on it for 8 months, spent over $2,000, and it was absolutely breathtaking, right up until convention staff told her she couldn't wear it inside. What Jessica discovered the hard way is that conventions aren't just dealing with cosplay rules anymore. They're dealing with fire codes, insurance policies, and venue contracts that treat oversized builds like safety hazards. And the restrictions are getting stricter every single year. Here's the brutal truth: that hallway stopping angel build you've been dreaming of. Fire marshals see it as a moving obstacle that could block emergency exits during an evacuation. Venue managers see it as a lawsuit waiting to happen when someone gets poked in the eye. Insurance companies see it as a liability they don't want to cover. The numbers are staggering. Convention attendance has exploded, but venue sizes haven't kept pace. You've got 50,000 people trying to move through spaces designed for half that number. Add in giant cosplay builds that extend 3 feet in every direction, and suddenly you've got human traffic jams that can turn dangerous fast. But here's where it gets really interesting. The cosplayers who are succeeding with large builds aren't fighting the restrictions, they're engineering around them. Take David's incredible Gundam cosplay. Original design, 12 feet tall, 6 feet wide, completely unwearable indoors. His solution? Modular construction with magnetic quick-release joints. Walk mode, compact, streamlined, fits through doorways. Photo mode, full-size, deployed in seconds. Absolutely stunning. The judges loved the engineering, security loved the compliance, and David got more photos than he would have with a static build because he could adapt to any situation. The same engineering principle is saving cosplayers who love wheeled builds. Heelys, roller skates, hoverboards, they all seem harmless until you picture them on a crowded escalator or polished convention center floor. One slow fall can create a domino effect that injures dozens of people. Convention insurance companies have run the numbers, and they don't like what they see. Metal stanchions plus wheels plus crowds equals lawsuits they don't want to pay for. That's why wheels are getting banned outright, or restricted to carry only policies that defeat the entire purpose. Smart cosplayers are adapting with removable wheel systems. Snap-in covers that hide the wheels completely. Clip-off skate plates for photos. Foldable designs that work outside but store safely inside. The character aesthetic stays intact, but the liability disappears. Even drone usage is getting hammered by these new policies. What used to be a cool way to get aerial shots of your group cosplay is now seen as a privacy nightmare, a safety hazard, and a contract violation all rolled into one. Venues are putting no-fly language directly into their agreements with conventions. The paranoia isn't entirely unfounded. Drones can carry cameras into restricted areas. It can interfere with venue security systems. It can crash into crowds or expensive equipment. And with FAA regulations getting stricter every year, convention organizers simply don't want the headache. But photographers are finding creative workarounds. Collapsible LED props that suggest flight without actually flying. Light stands and creative angles that fake aerial perspectives, remote-controlled ground vehicles that capture dynamic shots without leaving the floor. The results often look better than drone footage because they're more controlled and deliberate. The key insight here is that conventions aren't trying to kill creativity, they're trying to manage massive crowds in spaces that weren't designed for this level of chaos. The cosplayers who understand this are the ones finding solutions that work for everyone. Size restrictions aren't going away. If anything, they're getting stricter as conventions grow larger and venues become more liability conscious. But that doesn't mean big builds are dead. It means they're evolving into something smarter, more adaptable, and often more impressive than their static predecessors. The modular design revolution is just getting started, and early adopters are discovering benefits they never expected. Faster setup times, easier transport, better photos because you can optimize for each shot. And most importantly, zero hassle with security because you've designed compliance into every component. But size and movement aren't the only things getting cosplayers banned. The next category is even more insidious because it involves technology that seems completely harmless. We're talking about LED effects, laser pointers, and electronics that can get you ejected from a convention faster than any weapon ever could. The tech bans nobody talks about. Alex thought he was being clever. His Iron Man arc reactor wasn't just a static prop. It had a genuine laser diode that projected a beam across his chest, creating this incredible sci-fi effect that looked amazing in photos, right up until that beam bounced off a vendor's chrome display case and hit someone in the eyes 2 aisles away. What happened next was a nightmare: convention medics, incident reports, lawyers getting involved, and Alex facing a lifetime ban from not just that convention, but potentially others in the same network. All because of a tiny laser pointer that he bought for $20 online. Here's what most cosplayers don't understand about laser restrictions. Security staff can't tell the difference between a harmless presentation pointer and a device that can cause permanent eye damage. They don't have time to check milliwatt ratings or read safety labels. And venues are absolutely terrified of laser incidents because the liability is massive and the damage can be irreversible. The physics are working against you in convention settings. Those polished floors, chrome vendor displays, glass cases, camera lenses, they're all perfect reflectors that can bounce even low-power laser beams in completely unpredictable directions. A beam that seems safely pointed at the floor can ricochet off a phone screen and nail someone across the hall. Convention insurance companies have seen the lawsuits: permanent vision damage, ongoing medical costs, criminal charges in some jurisdictions. That's why laser policies have gone from "be careful" to "absolutely not ever under any circumstances." Even those tiny keychain pointers are getting confiscated at security checkpoints. But smart cosplayers are discovering that the alternatives actually look better on camera. Addressable LED strips doing slow pulse animations, fiber optic cables that contain light instead of projecting it, EL wire creating tracer effects that photograph beautifully but never blind anyone. The Iron Man builds using these techniques are getting more attention than the laser versions ever did. The same liability nightmare is hitting atmospheric effects, but for completely different reasons. Remember Lisa's incredible dragon cosplay with the built-in fog machine? It lasted exactly 30 seconds before setting off the venue's fire suppression system and triggering a partial evacuation. Convention venues put no atmospheric effects clauses in their contracts because a single false alarm can cost thousands of dollars and ruin entire event schedules. Fog machines, vape devices hidden in props, even theatrical smoke tablets are instant triggers for hypersensitive detection systems that can't tell the difference between harmless vapor and actual fire. The cleanup costs alone are staggering. Glitter and confetti might look magical in photos, but venue cleaning crews charge premium rates to scrub that stuff out of carpet fibers. And don't get started on the liability issues when someone with allergies has a reaction, or when glittery floors become slip hazards in high-traffic areas. Convention organizers are sharing horror stories about cosplayers who thought one little puff of fog wouldn't hurt anyone. HVAC systems shutting down. Emergency protocols activating. Hundreds of people evacuating while staff try to determine if there's an actual fire. The ripple effects can shut down entire sections of a convention for hours. The workarounds are actually more creative and photogenic. Frosted acrylic panels with internal LEDs that fake steam effects. Transparent ribbons and sculpted cotton that suggests smoke without producing any. Holographic laminates that create sparkle effects without dropping debris everywhere. These solutions photograph better because they're more controlled and don't dissipate like real fog. But the most dangerous tech category is also the most common: DIY electronics that look innocent but can turn deadly in crowded spaces. Jake's Mandalorian jetpack seemed perfect. Custom LED arrays, sound effects, even a heads-up display. Until venue electricians spotted the loose 18650 lithium batteries taped together with electrical tape and no protection circuitry. What Jake didn't realize is that unshielded lithium battery packs are essentially bombs waiting for the right combination of heat, pressure, and bad luck to go off. Thermal runaway in lithium cells can reach temperatures over 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. In a crowded convention hall, that's not just a fire hazard, it's a mass casualty event waiting to happen. Convention venues are cracking down hard on sketchy electronics because they've seen the aftermath of battery fires, toxic smoke that can kill faster than flames, fires that water can't extinguish, evacuation scenarios that turn deadly when thousands of people try to exit through limited doorways simultaneously. The professional approach isn't just safer, it's more reliable and looks better too. Certified USB power banks with visible safety labels, inline fuses that prevent overcurrent situations, hard kill switches accessible from outside the prop, heat shrink on every connection, and strain relief where cables pass through costume elements. Convention security staff actually love seeing proper electronics because it shows you understand the risks and took them seriously. They'll wave you through faster when they can see professional-grade components and safety engineering. Some conventions are even starting to require photos of internal wiring for complex electronic props. The scary part: most cosplayers building dangerous electronics have no idea they're creating hazards. They see tutorials online, buy cheap components, and assume that if it works in their workshop, it'll be fine in a crowded venue. They don't think about thermal stress, vibration, moisture, or the 100 other factors that can turn a working prop into a disaster. But electronics bans aren't even the final category that's catching cosplayers off guard. The restrictions that shock people the most are the ones that target identity and uniforms, policies that can get you banned before you even make it through the front door. The identity crisis, when cosplay meets reality. Maria's Mandalorian helmet was a work of art: screen-accurate proportions, weathered paint job, and a completely opaque visor that made her look like she'd stepped off the set of the Disney Plus series. But when she reached convention security, they had 2 words for her: take it off. What Maria discovered is that conventions are facing an identity crisis that has nothing to do with cosplay accuracy and everything to do with security logistics. When something goes wrong in a crowded venue, and something always goes wrong, staff need to identify people fast. Full-face masks and opaque visors make that impossible. The policy shift happened gradually, then all at once. A few incidents where security couldn't identify problem attendees. Some insurance companies asking pointed questions about anonymity in crowds. Venue managers expressing concerns about accountability. Now many conventions have gone nuclear: no fully concealed faces in public areas, period. But here's what security staff won't tell you directly. The policy isn't really about your helmet, it's about the guy who caused problems last year and then disappeared into the crowd because no one could see his face. It's about emergency situations where medics need to check someone's condition but can't see their eyes or mouth. It's about basic crowd psychology and the human need to see faces in social situations. The workarounds are becoming more sophisticated every year. Magnetic flip-up visors that deploy and retract in seconds. Tinted materials that look opaque in photos but become transparent at close range. Mesh panels positioned where staff can see lips and eyes during ID checks. Quick release mechanisms with lanyard tethers, so you never drop expensive components during security stops. The smart cosplayers are designing 2 modes into every build: photo mode with full concealment and floor mode with visible identification. It takes an extra 30 seconds to transition, but it eliminates 90% of security interactions and gets you moving through venues much faster. But identity policies are nothing compared to the uniform restrictions that are blindsiding cosplayers who thought they were being completely innocent. Take Kevin's incredible post-apocalyptic military build: tactical vest, duty belt, molly webbing. Everything was fictional, everything was clearly post-apocalyptic, but security shut him down anyway. The problem wasn't accuracy, it was confusion. In a crowded venue, split-second identification matters. If your costume reads as real military or police gear from 10 feet away, you've created a potential emergency response nightmare. What happens when someone calls 911 about an armed officer in the convention center? What happens when actual emergency responders show up and can't tell who's real and who's cosplaying? Convention liability lawyers have wargamed these scenarios, and they don't like the outcomes: mistaken identity situations that delay real emergency response, confusion that puts actual first responders at risk, public relations disasters when news cameras can't tell the difference between costume and uniform. The solution isn't to abandon military or tactical aesthetics, it's to push them so far into sci-fi territory that no one could mistake them for real gear. Bright color schemes that scream fiction, exaggerated proportions that look like video game assets, custom insignia and faction logos that clearly mark the costume as fantasy. But even fictional military gear pales in comparison to the absolute zero-tolerance policies around hate symbols and extremist iconography. This isn't a gray area. This isn't negotiable. This isn't something you can explain away with, but it's for a villain character. Convention organizers learned this lesson the hard way after incidents where attendees felt threatened, where media coverage turned toxic, and where entire events faced boycotts over costume choices that someone thought would be edgy or historically accurate. The math is simple: one bad costume can destroy years of community building and cost millions in lost revenue. The enforcement is swift and absolute. Badge pulled, weekend over, lifetime bans that extend across convention networks. Even historical reenactment groups are getting caught in this dragnet because conventions can't afford to have lawyers debating the difference between education and glorification in a crowded hallway. If your character concept involves tyranny, control, or dystopian themes, represent those ideas through original symbolism that tells the story without triggering trauma. Invent faction logos that convey authoritarianism without copying real-world hate movements. Keep the narrative focus on your character's story, not on iconography that reminds people of actual historical atrocities. The content restrictions extend beyond symbols to general appropriateness standards that catch cosplayers off guard. Family-friendly conventions run on a PG-at-a-glance rule that's stricter than most people realize. If someone walking by with their kids can read your costume as explicit or inappropriate from 10 feet away, you're getting covered up or asked to leave. This hits certain anime and gaming cosplays particularly hard. Designs that work perfectly in online communities don't necessarily translate to all ages public spaces. Convention organizers are balancing adult attendees who want creative freedom with families who expect kid-safe environments. The smart approach involves layered design strategies, reversible elements that can tone down suggestive aspects in seconds, magnetic covers for potentially problematic signage, sheer overlays that maintain the character aesthetic while meeting public decency standards. Design with versatility in mind, and you can adapt to any venue's requirements. Even simple accessories are getting scrutinized under these new policies. Long chains, rigid tethers, anything that could become a trip hazard in crowded spaces, they're all getting flagged by security teams that have seen too many escalator accidents and hallway pileups. The solution is breakaway hardware that looks authentic but prioritizes safety. Magnetic clasps that separate under load, lightweight materials that won't cause injury during accidental contact, tuckable elements that can be secured during transit and deployed only in controlled photo zones. But here's the thing that most cosplayers miss: these restrictions aren't killing creativity, they're forcing it to evolve in directions that are often more interesting than the original approaches. Modular designs are more versatile, safe electronics are more reliable, original symbolism is more meaningful than copied iconography. The conventions that are thriving aren't the ones fighting these changes, they're the ones embracing them and helping cosplayers adapt. They're providing prop check services, repair stations, and clear guidelines that help creators succeed within the new parameters. The cosplay community that emerges from this transition is going to be more skilled, more safety conscious, and more creative than what came before. The lazy approaches are getting filtered out, but the innovative ones are being rewarded with better photos, smoother convention experiences, and recognition from judges who appreciate thoughtful problem solving. These 18 restrictions aren't the end of cosplay culture. They're the birth of something better, something safer, something more sustainable as the community continues to grow and evolve. The question isn't whether you'll adapt to these changes, it's whether you'll do it proactively or learn the hard way, one security checkpoint at a time. The future of cosplay belongs to builders who treat restrictions as design challenges rather than creative limitations. Master that mindset and you won't just survive the new landscape, you'll dominate it.